Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday night here as we are live on Talking Hoops with the cast here. Co-host Ron Briscoe, Coach Johnson, and Coach Mack. All of the lovely co-hosts are here tonight, and our guest, and I will say his name here momentarily because I want to make sure that I do not get it wrong. And if I do, I apologize to Mark, as he had told me originally before we went on as we were talking here backstage. But hailing from Philadelphia, also the founder at the Players Name, Image, Likeness, also the NIL Playbook creator, for those who know the acronyms NIL. Also, the NIL for All, available on Amazon. It is a 30-minute guide to the NIL. And with that being said, we'll bring them on here momentarily. We also like to thank everyone who's tuning in from Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. Also, right here on broadscsouth.com, over on YouTube tonight. Two other places that we're linking up to, one being LinkedIn, hint, hint there, and then the other one on Twitter, so you guys can watch us many ways this evening. And of course, over on AMP Radio. So about 6 different ways you can catch the show tonight. Starting next week, though, there will be a change on Facebook. We will no longer be publishing on Facebook, only because Facebook continues to change different algorithms, keeps changing different types of situations, and sometimes they don't push a live show. But we thank Facebook for being there for our support. So next week, going forward, you can catch us on YouTube and, of course, live on the website, broadscsouth.com. So if you do not like and subscribe to the show, please do so. Therefore, you don't miss it. And, of course, if you do not have the Sports Radio app, you can go to broadscsouth.com, click over on the Sports Radio tab. At the bottom of the page, it is available both for Android and the Apple Store. So many different ways. Once again, you can subscribe and tune into the show. With that being said, so we don't waste any other time and make sure we don't waste the time of our guests here, it is Mark R. and the last name being Koesterer.
Thank you, Angel.
You're welcome.
We'll just call me Coach Mark. How's that?
There you go. Coach, now, from what I understand, you are now residing in my old hometown of Philadelphia.
Yes, that is correct.
And well, welcome to the city of brotherly love. I know they're kind of going through a couple things up there, but normally it is a very beautiful city. A lot of folks, and as I always tell everybody, we do get a really bad rap, even though Philly makes or breaks you, but in a good way, not in a bad way. They try to do is just to push you to that next level. And so sometimes, thankfully, you're not in this, you're not out in the field, put it that way, where you would either hear the boos or you would hear the cheers, one of the two. But it's one of those things in Philadelphia that they just make people better. They make you stronger. And if you can survive Philly like Charles Barkley did after he got traded out to Phoenix, he will be the first one to tell you that he missed Philadelphia and he took it the wrong way when he said, man, those guys really made me step up my game a whole lot. So to Sir Charles, maybe one day you can stop by here on Talking Hoops. We'd appreciate it. But Mark, founder of the Players NIL, which is, again, name, image, likeness. Right now, it is an extreme hot topic with the NIL. And I think the more people are educated on there and on the subject, on the topic, the better it is, because the understanding for a lot of people, some people that you speak to or you hear about, absolutely hate it. It drives them crazy. And then some other people are just saying, you know what, the athletes, the students, people have, waited all this time because obviously colleges, universities have made money off the athletes. So to have a better understanding, how exactly does the NIL work?
Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction, and to the team here, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. And I'm not sure if Philadelphia is going to make or break me. I'm a New Yorker originally.
Oh, nice.
And, I spent 15 years in Los Angeles, so big cities don't scare me. Listen, I think name, image, and likeness has been around forever. I talk to people all the time, and Ron, with your background with Nike, athletes have been acting as sponsors since, the beginning of sports. Go way back to Joe DiMaggio and Yogi Berra and Joe Namath with the Jets and all these professional athletes. The NCAA had always thought that if athletes monetized their brand, that they would deem them as professionals and therefore would no longer be eligible for NCAA activities. Kind of archaic, kind of old school, but that's the way it was until July of 2021. So Although name, image, and likeness in its known form today is relatively new, athlete sponsorship, influencer marketing has really been around for a long time. I think what we want to talk about, though, is what has the news and pop culture sensationalized around NIL, which really represents a very small portion of the athletes, and what are the true opportunities for the 98% that you don't hear about on television.
Well, I think the tough part again for a lot of the folks and the understanding, because again, you have to educate yourself, and anything that you do in society, you have to make sure you educate yourself. But with the NIL, a lot of the students obviously taking advantage of it in a good way, obviously not in a bad way. And then you have some, Mark, that I want to kind of come understanding here. Some of these athletes are going to make more on a good possibility than they are their first year going into whatever sport, professional sport they're going to go into. Now, that being, the NBA, being the NFL, MLB. So, and I believe one of the current football players in college, and I'm almost certain it's his sophomore year, is looking to stand to make 25 million off his first NIL deal. So, with these young athletes, and we talked about it beforehand as well, but I want to bring it up with you. With these young athletes and the money that's going to be placed in their direction, what can they do to make sure not only that they just don't blow through the entire money, but to look for it for the future as well, just in case things go awry. It could be an injury, anything go wrong. But what can they do to make sure that they fuel their future with the investment money that people are putting towards them?
Well, I'm not sure who you're referring to on the 25 million, but I would just caution the audience to not pay attention to unsubstantiated news. That's a lot of money. I'm not sure that that's accurate. I think there are kids making millions, but again, it's a very small percentage. But let's take, the answer to your question, Angel, is this has put a microscope and a magnifying glass on all the pressures of young people. We've had this forever, especially in basketball, early recruiting, AAU teams, sponsorship. So this is no different other than it's right in front of you and it's being broadcast on the news. Financial literacy is important. Understanding the contracts that you're signing are important. Understanding what brand means, making sure that you associate yourself with the proper people, not affecting negatively your academic or your athletic eligibility or the team. So all this has done is put a magnifying glass on problems that we always have had and probably always will have. But what I hope it does is it emphasizes even more the importance of education. And that's what we teach at the Players NIL, are really life skills for life's challenges. We just use NIL as the platform, but that's really our focus.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, I have a question for you, man. With your new book out of guides, the content that's in it, that when people, when they open up and read it, what do they have to look forward to when they open up and read it and see what the content is going to be about?
Yeah, Ron, I think, what we've tried to do is give everyone a fast and relatively straightforward opportunity to learn what the basic concepts of NIL are, or athlete marketing, athlete branding. What does it take to build a personal brand? And we talk about this in the book, and we talk about it in our classes. A friends and family circle is not building a brand. Pictures of Thanksgiving dinner, pictures of your friends on a weekend, maybe sushi on Friday night. That is not building a brand. That's just being social media friends and family circle partner. We talk about telling stories. How do you connect with an audience? How do you be authentic? How do you build your audience beyond your friends and family circle? The second part that we teach is, what do you do when you have this following? How do you leverage it with brands? How do you become an influencer? What are the deliverables? What are you responsible for? Third one is, contracts. What are the compliance issues with the school and the state? What does a contract look like? What does intellectual property look like? What do lifetime rights look like? What are net payment terms? When are you going to get paid on this? We actually profess that community service and philanthropy is a great way to build a brand and to give back. And we teach young people how to use that to further their NIL opportunities. And then the last part that we teach is financial literacy, which we think financial literacy should be taught to all young people. A basic concept of how to manage money, how to use money, how to protect yourself from making financial mistakes, how to leverage this opportunity for a lifetime of success.
Agents are playing a big role now in NIL. Not only the agents, but there are several schools. Well, I know several people that now have the title of general managers in charge of running the NIL at these different universities. How well is that going from what you've been hearing lately?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, Ron, because that's actually the reason that I started this company. Was I spent 15 years in Hollywood working with athletes, actors, actresses, representing the production side of things. And I saw lots of adults taking advantage of uneducated young people. And in the beginning of NIL, July 21, for the first 5 or 6 months, I observed and I paid attention, and I saw the same thing: adults taking advantage of uneducated athletes. Unfortunately, when you have money, when you have power, when you can create influence, there are going to be unsavory characters out there. What we try to teach are the fundamentals that, number one, you don't make decisions that you're going to regret. Number two is that you can choose your advisors properly. Unfortunately, there's a lot of good agents out there, and I think people are doing great work in terms of representing athletes and connecting with brands and creating economic opportunities. But like any aspect of life, there are agents out there that are unsavory, that are taking advantage, that are probably not doing things in the best interest of the student athlete. That's why we built this foundational education platform. So with the book, in 30 minutes, you can have an idea of how it should work, and you can at least ask questions of your advisor.
Is that you have to be like a star athlete to be able to have an NIL. Can you give us like an example of when you've had a client who was not a star athlete and what were some of the things that they did to actually have a successful deal?
Yeah, it's a great question, Coach Max. So I think, again, the news has sensationalized those Power Five schools' revenue generating sports. In the first 2 years of NIL, football was the number one revenue generator. No, surprise there. Men's basketball 2, women's basketball 3, women's volleyball 4, and there's a bunch of female sports in the top 10. So that's kind of cool. I think those athletes are being paid to play. It's illegal. It's not the way the concept was put out there, but that's the reality of it. The alumni, the interested donors, the sponsors have formed a collective. They pooled their money together. They're using NIL opportunities to help recruit. Let's put that in a box. That's less than 2% of the athletes. We teach the 98% every day, where brands really want a return on investment. They want to know that if they invest in this athlete as a social media influencer, as a camp director, if they're going to do a charitable event, that the athlete's going to show up, be professional, be responsible. And that return on investment is based on the athlete performing. I think a great example is we worked with an athlete this summer, a Division III soccer player, female. She read our book. She took our class. We guided her through the process. Her first deal was with her local sushi restaurant for $250 a month. Now, that's nothing compared to the top end athletes, but to a Division III athlete that isn't on an athletic scholarship, that's paying for a large portion of her expenses, $250 represents a great start in our NIL journey. And I think that's one of the success stories that we tout.
Hey,
Anything.
$250 would have went a long ways. but but Mark, I have another question to ask you, man, because this is so interesting and so good. When you look at the future of NIL, and of course they have a gymnastics at LSU, a gymnast at LSU that's really really good, and she's probably making I know close to $1 million. And I heard Angel Reese, who's playing basketball at LSU, is really making a lot of money. I don't know if she's making $1 million, but I'm hearing this in that figure. Do you make contact with them? For instance, like if I was, still working with Nike, I want to go ahead and make contact with those two people and say, hey, we got a deal for you, and we got a guy like Mark that we can set you up with, so that he can come in and guide you along the way until you get out of school, so we can take over. Do you do anything like that?
We do, but not at that level of athlete, Ron. I think those girls that you just mentioned and many others, they're influencers. They are athletes. They are, athletically gifted, and they're using their platform for good. And I love that. those people are well represented. They have agents. They're working with advisors. They don't need a company like me to teach them what to do. They have people doing it for them. We're there for the athletes that don't have an advisor, that don't have an agent, that don't have an NIL department in their school. We're there for the athlete that is trying to do this on their own and also try to make good decisions about possibly having representation or advisors. So I think that, again, the Angel Reese story is a great one, and Livy Dunn, the gymnast, is a great story. And I don't know what the money is, but it sounds like it's significant and good for them. But the players' NIL is about the 98% that don't have those resources, and trying to create life skills. And we really believe that this is going to create an opportunity for young entrepreneurs, for people today that are interested in technology, interested in medical science, interested in business, finance, to begin their journey as an entrepreneur, as a business person. And I have come to believe that in 20 years from now, the leaders of society, whether they be the politicians, the community servants, the business leaders, are going to be largely decorated with athletes that started their journey during this NIL period. And I believe that NIL can change lives. And I think that you're going to see this down the road, that these athletes are going to become the leaders of society.
There, Mark, and I want to bring up a couple of quick comments here. Emily Bull says, "Hey, Coach Mac, Stan Harper, Louise McBride, my girl." Taiwana says, "Hey, McBride, Lady Ram support, number 2,400. It might have been number 24 there." And then
No.
Miller face, Nortella Davis says, "Angel is clocking in a range of $1.6 million."
That is correct.
That's a lot of
Get it for
money,
net
boy.
worth.
It sure is. But Mark, when you had brought up, as far as we know, for these athletes and thinking after their playing days, and when you brought up a point there as far as starting a business, for the ones that you have spoken to so far, how many love that advice that they're looking at it? Okay, sure, I'm a born and bred basketball player, football player, whatever the case may be. You being there, being part of a coach, educating them, how much more do they pay attention now where they know, like, you know what, Coach Mark is setting me up for success in the future where I don't have to worry about that. If I do get injured, I have something else to fall back on.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing, right? We're preaching the gospel, as they say, and that is that NIL is for all. That's the name of our book, and that there is an opportunity for everyone. And I think kids are starting to realize, wow, this is something that can pay dividends. No offense to Russian history, no offense to calculus, no offense to some of these classes that they've been forced down our throats forever. But NIL is an opportunity that can pay dividends professionally, right? And these are things, these are life skills. And again, I don't care if you're in the insurance industry or if you're in the pizza making industry. Digital marketing, influencer marketing, understanding what a contract looks like are life skills that are going to pay dividends in whatever field they choose to go into.
Now, one thing that I am curious about, which we obviously won't have the data at this point, but just how long term will the NIL affect some of the mental well being of some of these up and coming athletes who already have the pressure of wanting to be successful and trying to succeed, and what that looks like long term, of the pressure of trying to use their success in their athletic performance to obtain NIL deals?
Yeah, it's a great question, Coach Johnson. I think I have a good answer. And, my experience as a high school athlete, college athlete, parent of athletes, I've seen hundreds, thousands of young people go through this process. And one of the transformative moments in my life was I was at a wedding with some college athletes that had finished playing their sport, and they were lost. They didn't know where they wanted to go because they didn't have a plan and they didn't have a brand that they felt comfortable with outside of their sport. And they were left empty and hollow. And we know that mental illness has really been a focus in recent years. People are talking about it. People are positively dealing with it. But part of that pressure comes from, my belief, is that our athletes are being celebrated at a young age. They're being told that they're amazing. They're being enabled. They're being held on a pedestal. They're not being held accountable. They're not dealing with adversity. And their whole personal image, when they look in the mirror, they see basketball player, right? They don't see humanitarian, someone interested in food, someone interested in science, travel, fashion. They don't see someone that's interested in music. And we actually are starting to evolve a program where we're using NIL to create a balanced mental health aspect so that when the ball stops bouncing, when your career is over, that you have something to fall back on. You have something that you feel good about, have something that you're proud of. And we understand the pressures on young people, especially from social media. And we're aware of that and we're concerned about that. We're trying to teach balance, and we think NIL can provide some mental health tools to give you that balance and give you self-worth beyond just being viewed as an athlete.
The youngest age that, as far as one of your clients, like what is the youngest that you've ever serviced?
Well, we actually have a philosophical thought on this, Coach Mack, and that is we think it should start as a junior in high school. That's when your recruiting process starts. It's when the college decision process starts. I think prior to that, it's probably not healthy. Back to Coach Johnson's question about mental health and pressure. And you're also vulnerable to predators, people that are going to take advantage of your deals, people that are going to put you in bad deals, people that are not going to manage your money properly. And so we think that roughly age 16, but we'll call it juniors in high school, are the kids about the right starting time, because it takes time to build a brand. We want them to, when they go to college 2 years after that moment, that they have something that's already sustainable that they can leverage when they get to college. And so junior in high school is the answer to the question.
Okay. The comment that came in from Joey B. Great friend of the show here, says, Mark, do you see NIL reducing the amount of money to parents, kind of quote here, bribes, and influencing a student athlete's decision, or will it have the opposite effect?
Well, it's a heavy question. Look, I think, as we talked about it earlier, and Ron, you understand from your Nike days, there's been influence peddling going on with young basketball players for a long time. Shoe deals, apparel deals, houses, cars. That probably has just moved from the parking lot to the locker room now. We now know it's transparent. It's relatively public. So I don't know that it's any different other than it's a little bit more public. In terms of the liability of the parents and the liability of the student athlete with these brands, I'm not sure where it's going to go. But again, that's what we're trying to teach is real NIL, healthy NIL, not opportunistic NIL where kids are being taken advantage of.
Hey, Mark, let me ask you this question. And Angel touched on it earlier about insurance. And he talked about a player that's playing real good and all of a sudden that player becomes injured. What kind of insurance policy? Because I know the NCAA does sign players to insurance policies, the ones that they think are going to be high in the draft. Do you also teach anything like that with NIL?
Not specifically to accident or health insurance for athletes that may get injured, but I think, Ron, we do teach what insurance is and how to leverage that. And a good financial plan involves insurance in most people's opinion. So it's a great question. I don't have any firsthand experience with injury insurance. I don't know of any young athletes that have purchased it prior to college, but I know it's prevalent in the professional sport level. So I assume that there are kids taking advantage of it, but I don't know anyone personally.
A top 10 pick who have said like, hey, just in case I blow my knee out or, something happens to me, I'm going to sign this contract with the NCAA so I can have a little bit to fall back on as an insurance policy. So that has happened in the past.
Couple more
Mark,
comments coming in. Go ahead, Coach Mack.
go ahead. No, you can go ahead.
Oh, no, just a couple quick ones here. Casey King Carter says, okay, hey, y'all. And followed by...
By the way, these are my high school teammates, friends. So that's what the 2400 is for. I went to Provine and we rep that hard. So we go hard.
All right.
Provine goes hard too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. And your
Good
question was,
history
Coach
there.
Mack?
Yes. Okay. So let me ask you about when it comes to laws in your company, because laws are always changing, especially in the finance industry. It's always changing. And it seems like pretty much every year. Does your company help with understanding the laws so that way that client knows how to protect themselves, know what to look out for, how to educate themselves, and things as such?
Absolutely. So I think one of the problems with NIL, Coach Mack, is that there are not a lot of guidelines. The NCAA washed their hands and said it's a free-for-all. And so there's no consistent guardrails. Every state has a little bit different policy. As we sit here tonight, I think around 30 states have authorized NIL for high schools. That means that the rest of them have not as of this moment. In the college level, you see states trying to enact laws that help the schools that reside in their states. There are NCAA representatives, college representatives meeting on Capitol Hill in Washington, trying to decide if there should be an NCAA or a national federal legislative process. I think we're going to have more restrictions. I think that that's probably a good thing. I think there's a little bit too much of a free-for-all right now, but we do teach compliance. And we always advise the student athletes to meet with their the compliance office on campus, or if they're in high school, to talk to their high school education leaders to make sure that they're compliant. But right now, basically, most of the rules involve the student athlete not representing brands that are not wholesome in terms of no alcohol, no tobacco products, for example. Not wearing their uniforms in social media posts, so you're not allowed to wear your high school uniform or your college uniform. And those are kind of the two biggest ones right now. And then the rest would be reporting and compliance issues with the NCAA, which the school can manage. So there are not a lot of restrictions right now. I do anticipate that there will be more, and compliance is in pillar 3 with tax and legal.
This question has to deal with during the summertime or during the springtime. Are there any events that you post on your website or LinkedIn or however you post them, social media wise, whereby you want to invite the parent or say a prospective kid in the 9th and 10th grade to come in and learn about what you have to offer from the book?
Yeah, so we have done a lot of seminars this summer, especially when kids have a little more free time. The travel teams are going, and I would offer to anyone out there, any coach or administrator or parent, I'm available for lectures, webinars, conference calls, however you would like to engage in person. If you're in Philadelphia, when Angel comes, we can meet. But yeah, for sure, we don't have a schedule that we derive or that we drive. But we certainly are available, and we have done a bunch of seminars for interested parties.
Okay, that's great. Anybody else have a question?
I think we got quite a few questions in the comments.
Yep.
Really good question.
Yeah. Tawana Gright says, oh, yeah, her whole team and her whole in her supporting, we are definitely proud of Coach Mack. And then Nortella Davis says, are there any concerns, Coach Mark, around NIL deals creating a pay-for-play environment?
Well, I think we're there, right? I think that's what's happened in the Power 5 schools. It's not supposed to be that way, but absolutely. You have two colliding forces, two driving forces that have collided. It's NIL and it's the transfer portal. And maybe the greatest example of that is Deion Sanders at Colorado, where he's turned the entire roster over and made his team competitive in one off season. So essentially what you have now in big time college sports are free agency because of the transfer portal. You have no salary cap because there's no restrictions on what NIL can do. And they're all 1-year contracts. So you have free agency, no salary cap, and 1-year contract in these Power 5 schools. So unfortunately to your listener, it's already there, and it's a big question and a big problem for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, Joey B follows up with, he says, Mark, how will NIL apply to foreign athletes playing here in the States? For example, a foreign basketball player has a potential to land NIL millions from overseas sources.
Yeah, great question. So as we sit here tonight, once again, foreign students who are here on education visas are not allowed to participate in NIL in the United States.
Wow.
They will jeopardize their visa. And you'll see, and Ron, in the basketball world, you'll see in this early preseason, a lot of teams are going to places like the Bahamas, right, for preseason tournaments. And a lot of teams went to Europe this summer because they're shooting their content outside the United States so that they don't jeopardize their visas. So it's a great question. I don't know enough about, immigration and naturalization laws. I'm assuming that this will be addressed at some point, but with all things government, it's going to take some time. But right now, currently, if you're on an education visa, you're not allowed to make money from NIL. on U.S. soil. So that's why you see teams doing foreign trips.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that happened in Kentucky. The guy had to go to the Bahamas to get his endorsement deals, film and everything, so he can make his money because he couldn't receive a visa, and also they had another guy to come in that played from Canada. They had to go to Canada and do it. So it's just like you said, it's different stuff that's going on where you have to be update on the rules and the standards of NIL.
So I'm glad you're on tonight, Coach Mark, because learning a lot more, which is good. So I'm going to have to, there's a particular thing on Amazon I'm going to have to pick up to learn even a lot more just to hear as far as, because again, if we don't educate ourselves, I'm going to get to the question here momentarily. If we don't educate ourselves, no matter what it is, we're never going to know the answer, or we're going to think we do know the answer, and then we're just going to pass out false information. Not, it's better to know a lot more, educate yourself a lot more, because the NIL deal, just like you stated, I had no idea that they had to go as far as like the Bahamas in order to do, any kind of filming or anything else. That is beyond interesting. So that's great knowledge to know. But Alicia Vasquez follows up with a question. She says, "Did I hear you correctly? Students are not allowed to wear their uniforms on social media, or is it while in the act of doing something that does not represent the school well? Is it their personal social media, or is that applied to the parents?"
It applies to the student athlete that would be wearing their uniform while doing an NIL deal. So, for instance, if I was working with Angel's Pizza in my hometown and I was wearing my high school jersey and saying, "Hey, I'm Ron Briscoe from XYZ High School and I play basketball, come to Angel's Pizza," that would be a violation. I don't know about the
Wow.
parents, but the parents don't have any eligibility, so I guess they could wear whatever they want. But
Some may think they do.
yeah,
Yeah, the guy I was talking about was Oscar Sheway for Kentucky, who's originally from the Bahamas, who had to do that. So,
yes.
Yeah, a couple more comments and another question here, I believe. San says Coach Mack is the best. 2,400 all the way. You know it. So, all right. So, Coach Mark, you weren't here last week. Last week it was the Coach Mack, Coach Johnson show, and it is followed up again this week by the Coach Mack and Coach Johnson show, which is good because it's good to see that everybody has come back here. Norchella Davis says, "Well, I better walk these old knees." NIL, here I come.
And you know what? I will say my mom did. She did not play basketball because that is my mom. But growing up, I will say she gave her best effort to come play some defense outside on my outside hoop. So that is
you out
hilarious.
there using your mom like that, huh?
Well, Ron,
Well,
I've been taller than my mom since I was about 9 years old. So
Oh, you
yeah.
have been using her.
Oh yeah.
don't worry, Coach. Don't worry, Coach Johnson. Here's a message for your mom if she's still listening. The older I get, the better I was.
I did owe that.
That's a good one. Alicia Vasquez follows up with, "I also want to thank you for bringing up mental health and athletes. Oftentimes, people are not considerate of the amount of pressure students are under and how the pressures of the game, one way or the other, can be overwhelming." That is actually a great, great comment because it is absolutely true. As fans, we all know it, right? We all play armchair quarterback. You name it, we do it. And we say that if you would have ran this route, if here's this side that was open. I mean, we do everything. It's what we do. It's human nature. But we never think about half the time how the athletes are feeling. And then now I will roll it over into Philadelphia, where you might hear it on the opposite end of, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And then they call the shows on Monday morning and they want to talk about if they played this game, this is how this ended up. And so we never think about the mental awareness and the mental health for a lot of these athletes, and bringing, I guess, a former Pittsburgh Steeler, Antonio Brown, obviously, separated from the conversation here. But when it comes to mental awareness, I feel bad because I think he's gone through so much in his life that it's all just kind of compounded and he doesn't know. I'm not, it's just my opinion here, he may not know how to deal with it. And so the way he interacts may not be what we want to see. We want to see a more responsible individual. But again, we're not Antonio Brown. So we have no idea what has gone on in his life. And we've seen other athletes have taken their lives because of concussions or other things that have happened. So that was a very, very great comment there about Ms. Vasquez. So we have
Anybody else?
So let me ask you this, Mark, because I know every client is not a perfect client. Can you tell us about one of the challenges you faced in this industry? I'm pretty sure there's quite a few of them, but one is fine.
I was going to say, how much time do you have?
That's a good one, Mark.
I think it's a good question. And I think, back to the responsibility word, and I think one of the challenges that I did not anticipate, quite honestly, and I may have misjudged, was how hard it is to manage student athletes today in terms of their time and their focus. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend NIL is perfect. NIL takes a lot of work. It's hard. There's pressures. Some are more successful at it than others. Some are more comfortable than others. But I think managing athletes and getting them to appear on a Zoom call on time, to post what they're supposed to post regularly, to get it approved, to not wear their jersey or not have a can of Coke sitting in the back when they're doing a Pepsi spot, right? So I think generally young people need guidance and help. And I think this has, again, exposed them to entrepreneur opportunities, which is fantastic, but it also exposes them to responsibility and performance and being on time and being an adult in terms of your relationship with the people you're working with. So I think managing time has been the biggest struggle that I see, and that's something that we've had to adjust our delivery method. I don't know if any of our audience out there has children that have phones. They don't answer the phone. They don't answer email. You need to text them, right? You need to be patient because they're not going to text you back right away. So those have been some of the lessons that we've learned in the first year of our company.
I do want to bring up because, again, you have some of the guys like Bronny James, Archie Manning, Marvin Harrison Jr., some of these guys who are getting some pretty good deals this year. Coach, do they get a pass just because of who they are? And I'm not saying that Bronny, I know he's not, because I know that LeBron is going to be really tough on him because of the way LeBron came up in the game. But do these guys, if they show up late for practice and they do have an NIL deal, do they try to throw their name in there? Like, what are you talking about? I'm Bronny James. I don't have to be here on time. Is there not a lot of that going on as far as talk, but does that ever come up? I guess throughout the season.
Well, I don't think it's an NIL issue, right? It's an elite athlete. It's an entitled, privileged conversation. I just saw today that Deion Sanders was asked a question about a 5-star player that he has on the team. I think it's a cornerback. I don't know his name. And Deion said he's not going to play until he spends more time in the film room, monitors his film usage. So it's an individual thing. Have there been entitled, spoiled brat athletes? Forever. Right? Forever there have been. And I don't think NIL has anything to do with it, although maybe it empowers them more and makes them feel more entitled. But I think if they're smart, they'll realize if they don't play, there's no NIL for them. So hopefully they're being responsible and being good teammates.
Well, let's hope so. Because again, I know these deals are, there's a lot of deals out there, which it's good again for athletes. And we've seen many universities years past have made a lot of money off the names of a lot of these athletes. So it's good to see that athletes are getting their money. It's great to see that you have your business, your organization are trying to educate these kids to let them know exactly where they need to be mentally, obviously, as far as the wealth as well, because you're absolutely right. It's one thing in high school that we never had the opportunity was to have a class just to say, here's what you need to do to invest into your future. That just, it's not ready available. So I'm glad, Coach Mark, that you have your company, that you're able to talk to these athletes and educate them, to let them know it. Life doesn't stop after the game. You can continue, and here's the path that you can take.
Absolutely. We like to say, Angel, that NIL is not a 4-year thing. It's a 40-year thing. And we believe that.
It's well said.
couple last comments here before we let you go. Jay and Keith, am I going to say these Chanel? Because I don't want to see Channel. Could some people end up being Chanel? But I'm with you because NIL players are getting paid. And Brandon Cunningham, it says watching from work. So thank you, Brandon, for watching from work. But listen, Coach Mark, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate you can hang around the panel if you would like to. I understand you're a busy man as well. So either you can hang out with us or if you have to go, we understand.
Yeah, I've got to run, but I really appreciate it. I think, we had some great questions from the audience, and I welcome the opportunity. I just want to leave you with this. I think NIL is a great opportunity to change lives. And the Players NIL, my company, our mission is twofold. One is, how do you use athletics to better your life? In other words, create opportunities. And then for those of us when our careers are over, like Coach Johnson's mom, how do you use athletics to better the lives of the people around you? And I hope that the Players NIL and opportunities like this to speak with you, if it helps one person, if it prevents one problem with an NIL deal or gives motivation to someone to change their opportunities and create lifetime opportunities, then we're successful. And I want to thank you all for being such gracious hosts and allowing me to speak.
No
hey,
problem.
Mark, you're welcome, man.
Thank you, Mark.
And Coach, before you take off here, Barry had one quick comment. I also want to make sure that you tell people how they can get a hold of you as well. But Barry says NIL sounds like a good stepping stone for preparing young people for that business world. I'm happy to see the pressure release for struggling families. Players may not have to go to pro early.
Yeah, no question about it. I think that these are economic opportunities, but they're really life opportunities in terms of jobs and things like that. You can reach me at theplayersnil.com. We're on all social media platforms at theplayersnil. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. You can follow me. I post regularly about newsworthy stories. And if anyone has any questions, reach out to me directly. I'm happy to assist you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Hey,
you,
Mark,
Coach. I will see
Thank
you.
you, Mark.
in touch with you again. I'll be getting in touch
Have a
with
good
you
evening.
again, Mark. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thank you.
Sure.
You
Have a
as
good
well.
evening. Bye-bye now.
Right. We thank Coach Mark for coming on and spending some time with us. We know he's a very busy individual. Thanks to Ron for making it happen. We do appreciate it because, again, it's all one big family thing here, as we see tonight with all the family comments. And these are for you guys on the right side of your screen, depending on which way you're looking at. Of course, all your chats are up there so you guys can see one another's chats in case you missed it. So that's a new feature here on Talking Hoops. Next week, we will have the phone line fired up as I try to get it through tonight, but because of multiple shows, it's a little bit tough. And Mrs. Coach Johnson,
Yes.
a round of applause for Coach Mark and everyone else. But no, listen, and it's good to learn. Obviously, don't forget, everyone, you can pick up the 30-minute guide, the NIL, on Amazon. It's still available, so you guys can learn a lot more, just like the rest of us did tonight, because, again, there's so much structure that goes into it. And I think it's tough. Kudos to Coach Mark for doing so, because it has to be so hard. And not even to include, listen, if we're going to keep things 100 around here, let's keep it 100, because you're going to have somebody that's going to walk up to him and tell him, listen, I know what my worth is. All I want to know is how many zeros are going to have to be there. It's just, it's life. It's the way it is.
Gonna have that. Yes, you're going to have that, man. That's going to happen every time. Somebody's going to come up and be a little arrogant and say, hey, man, look, I know I'm worth 500,000, maybe 7,500, but they're going to say it. They're going to say it. You're right.
Or even worse, somebody's in their ear telling them,
I was
man,
just
you
about
should
to
be
say
getting
that.
this.
Yes. Honestly, I mean, if any of you have been out there on the AAU travel basketball, youth basketball world, I mean, the pressures being put on first graders by parents is outrageous. And I remember seeing this about a lot of parents who just were looking for their kids to go D1. Oh, I want my kid to go D1. Oh, I want my kid to go D1. And not realizing the percentage of kids that actually played basketball that actually get a D1 opportunity was 1% at the time. And so now you start factoring NIL and money and things like that. It just concerns me about the pressures that will be placed on the youth by their own parents. Like I said, the AAU market out there right now, I mean, I was flabbergasted to see how parents were out there acting. And I
Hmm.
think, the pressure that is being placed on kids as young as 7. So it'll be interesting to see how the NIL continues to progress in age as
Mm-hmm.
they start putting some rules and parameters around it, and how it affects kids and families, especially starting at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to tell you, Coach Johnson, when I started my basketball scouting service, I had that problem with a lot of parents calling me and saying, "Hey, you need to come see my kid. My kid's this, my kid's that," and just always just wanting me to come see their kid. And when I go to see them, I'll say like, "Well, your kid's a Division 2, Division 3." "Oh no, my kid's a D1 player." I said, "No, I don't think so. I've been doing this a long time, and I can tell." So you're right. There are a lot of parents that believe that their kids are better than what they are, and I think what they need to do is just enjoy their kids' activities and just go out there and support them. And if they're able to go up to that level, maybe a quality level or elite level, then just be there for them.
Right.
But don't try to push them and make them what they're not, because, like you said, mental health starts to play a part in this with the pressure
Mm-hmm.
that's been put on them. And I've seen some kids that when they're in the 7th grade, they can beat everybody. But
Yeah.
as they go up to the 10th and 11th grade, they top out,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
and they don't get any better. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this, and we try to sit down and tell the parents this in a very nice and calm way, but they don't believe it. And I know it took me about 3 years for one kid that was kicking everybody's tail. He was like 6'8" in the 7th grade and 8th grade, and he was doing his thing, and then he didn't grow anymore. He got slower, and then the scholarship offer that he got at Kentucky, they took it away because he didn't get any better, and that happens. So it's just to kind of piggyback on
So
what you was talking about.
let me ask you guys this question, and this is based off of the information that you just stated, Ron, about players. Do you think it's best for players to play within their age division, or do you think it's healthy for them to play up? So, like, what do you guys thought about that? Knowing how some parents influence their kids and how some kids may perceive things based off of the hype, so to say.
Well, let me answer that for you. It depends, because I've seen some players who can play up and
Mm-hmm.
hold their own. Okay, and I've seen some players that think they can play up and can't hold their own. Uh, I would just like to see a player play the age group, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because if they're going to be good, they're going to be good. They don't have to jump to the next level to show you that they're going to be good. If once they get to that level, most of the time they're going to be able to play with those people. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see them play in the age group. I know parents try to move them up and down and say, he's a young kid, I need to move him down, or he's an older kid, I need to move him up. I can understand that, but I prefer playing in your own age group. And to give you an example, we had a kid that was like 6'8", 6'9", and he was 12 years old, weighed about
Goodness.
260 pounds.
Ooh.
Okay. And we had him at one of our camps. Okay. And he was playing against ninth and 10th graders. And the first 2 days he did all right, but that third day he could barely walk.
Mm.
And the
Mm.
reason is because he was a 12-year-old, looking like he was a 15 and 16-year-old kid, but he wasn't. And the doctor said the kid's still growing. His
Mhm.
body hasn't matured until that age group. So that's one reason why you have to be careful when you have your kid out there. They call injuries more than to help them by playing with older kids who are developed.
Well, and I don't know, Coach
That
Johnson, you ever?
See, I do agree with some of the statements made by Ron. I do, but I was one of the younger kids that played up. By the time I was 10 years old, I was 5'6", and I also ran track, so I was able to keep up speed wise and all of that. And I will say my AAU team, when we were young, we played up. And for the first year we played up, we got wiped across the floor. Okay. Those teams showed us no mercy. I'm talking about there were games where the score would be 71-6, and we were not the ones with 70. So, but I will say that following year, during the off season, I mean, we worked hard, and most of us played other sports as well. We ran track, we played soccer, things like that. And so that following year, when we had time to grow, like Ron made a great point, we had time to grow mentally, physically. Our bodies were a little bit different, and things like that. We were able to compete. And I mean, those same teams that showed us no mercy, I mean, we got our lick back. And so
Mhm.
I think that there are some benefits to it, because I do feel like I was a player that benefited from playing up. It helped my basketball IQ, playing against older girls and getting that experience, so that when I did play in my age group, that was able to be an advantage for me, is having this IQ, having this experience, kind of being able to understand the game a little bit differently.
Hmm.
But that's like I said, there's some players that are able to play up, and there's some that are not. You fortunately was one that was able to play up because you caught on to the game quick. You was physically gifted enough. You understood what the game had for you, and you were smart enough. So like I said, when you start to understand and put the game together at an early age, and you have the physical t- to do it, you can get things done. But like you said, before that 6 month period that you grew in to get better, it really helped your game out a lot. And that experience of playing against those players that had experience more than you helped you out a lot too. So you knew that you had to stay on top of your game at all times when you stepped on the court to play against older players. You couldn't go out there and just be like this that say you were in the 10th grade, and you couldn't just go out there and play with them 11th grade players like you was just in the 10th grade. You had to play on 11th grade uh, level. So that's what I'm saying. You have to be on your P's and Q's.
Absolutely.
That you do, and there's a round of comments that are coming in before the comments come in. But I know for just on experience alone, I know when in high school, I guess back in middle school, tried out for sports, and at the time, because my dad was not athletic, my dad constantly worked all the time, so he wasn't able to show me what any kind of motor skills when it came to playing. So mom, eh, God bless her, 4'9", didn't do much either, but she
y'all,
tried. But when I
y'all be using them moms, boy.
but when it came to baseball, the way I ended up learning how to play the game is obviously you got to learn how to catch first or anything else. And the first one that I attempted to catch hit me right in the forehead, and after that, I figured out how to catch a ball. When it came to
Mhm.
basketball, though, again, love the game. It just wasn't for me. When coach figured out that obviously my motor skills weren't that great, because as I told you guys, I think I mentioned on the last show as well. The name from the school was Brick. So anytime I heard coach say Brick, get that ball, and you're like, okay, coach, hold on, I'm going to get it. So that's my fundamentals when it comes to it. But no, the pressure is hard though, because you put pressure on yourself too. As when you're trying out for a team, it's two parts. One is you're scared because you're in front of peers you've never been in front of before. Even if your friends are good, they're seeing you for the first time trying to try out for a team. So that pressure surmounts even much more. Now, the one thing that I didn't think of, Coach Johnson, you just mentioned it, was starting from kindergarten. And that's tough, because those are
Yeah.
the times when you're just enjoying life as a child. Back, okay, back in our days,
Yeah.
that's when you enjoyed it. Now it's a whole different story. But it's true though. It's just the pressure, I think, is very, very tough on a lot of these kids, on a lot of the athletes. I know some parents take it to the extreme, and it's a shame, because again, let your child choose what he or she wants to do. Brandon
Yes.
came in with a comment earlier on, says, great show, we appreciate it. And then San, which hopefully we'll get Coach Mack here, because this question was for, I'll save that one. San, if Coach Mack comes back, I'll save it for her. Joey B comes in with, Where's Chef Kevin? I'm hungry. So
I am too.
yeah, so are the rest of us. But Kimberly says the AAU coaches is using this as a marketing platform, lying to kids and parents about getting them connection to the NIL deals. See, and
Mm,
that's bad. That's
Oh
really
yeah, but that's been going on. I mean, I can give an example, a great example of working with Nike. We sponsored AAU teams, so we would go ahead and buy the uniforms, buy the shoes, the basketballs, pay for the flights to the different ventures that they went to, and also we did it for the high schools. So if you had a player that we said like, okay, we're identified as an elite player, well, that player's AAU team would get sponsored. And not only that, we would sponsor the high school team. That's why we sponsored Coach Mack's Provine High School team, because they had some really good players on their team that we
We
sponsored.
did.
And they won 9 state championships in basketball at Provine, by the way. So that's a shout out to that outstanding athletic basketball program they have over there. But yeah, we would do that. We would do that, and that was a little bit of an NIL like that. And the coaches were one of the main reasons that we got them, because they were able to go out and recruit the players from all over the state. Some would We didn't want them to jump across the line, but sometimes they would jump across the state lines and go get a player. But we didn't want that, but they did it, and it all worked out. But there was a lot of pressure, and a lot of the coaches from that, I know several of them from that, became college coaches uh, from AAU, not even going to high school, jumping straight out of AAU to become a college coach. And I know a general manager now who's with the Detroit Pistons who went that route. He didn't go to high school. He was an AAU coach, had a really good team, went straight from AAU to college, and then he went from college straight to the NBA.
Coach Mack, there was a question posted up for you. And by the way, thank you for all the comments tonight. I do appreciate it as we're coming up here on the top of the hour. So I thank you for tuning in tonight. It is Talking Hoops Live here with Coach Mack, Coach Johnson, Ron Briscoe, myself here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, also on broadstsouth.com, over on AMP Radio tonight for the first time on Twitter, and also over on LinkedIn. So next week, if those who have missed it in the very beginning, the show will be broadcasted on YouTube and on Broad Street South. So make sure if you are subscribed so you won't miss the show. Also, if you are not subscribed over to the YouTube page, you can watch over on broadstsouth.com over the live shows so you won't miss another show. But Coach Mack said, Coach Mack, do you use some techniques for high school to teach other people?
Oh, absolutely. Mainly because my high school coach, she was very fundamental sound. She definitely believed in fundamentals foundations. And for the most part, she was huge on team chemistry. As you can see, my high school teammates still showing up. So we still have that chemistry. And it's something that has been everlasting. So I am very grateful for her because she really taught us a lot about life in general. And I've always stated that basketball is a great teacher of life. So yeah, I do definitely teach players now, including my son, the things that I've learned then, because I know that a lot of that is lacking now, as we talked about on a previous show about fundamentals. So yeah, it's very valuable, and it's definitely something that I do share with other players that I teach and coach.
Yeah, life skills are very important in life.
Very important. Norchella says having a great coach made a difference. He actually taught fundamentals. That's very true. Very, very true. Barry says T's parents had to bring her birth certificate to games as other parents challenged her age. Guess your dad
I've
was
seen that happen before.
yes.
I've seen that happen before.
Across the board, basketball, soccer, and track. Yeah.
That's crazy. See,
For you?
Yes.
Coach Johnson, for you? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You must have been a beast back in the day, girl.
And then I stopped growing. I stopped at 5'8". But I'm 6 foot in spirit, so that's all that matters.
There you go.
I understand.
Listen, the only time I saw
Put
someone
them
had to bring a
high
birth
heels
certificate was
on.
that movie Benchwarmers.
I love that movie.
You heard,
It's such a great movie.
you heard me, Angel?
What's that?
She put them high heels on. She put them high heels on. She's 6 foot.
I'm quite sure. Jay and Casey says sure did, and Brandon says you was a state champion track. If you're talking about I don't know with me or one of the other panels, anybody else run track?
That is my dad.
Yes.
No, that's your dad.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You was a state champion track?
Yes, I actually
What?
participated in the Hershey's National Track
Oh,
event.
Nice.
That's in Philly, actually. Well,
Uh-huh.
Pennsylvania, excuse me,
Yeah.
in Hershey's, and so I ran 4x1 in our relay team. We went. I got the chance to go three times. So, yes, we did that. I played quite a few sports growing up. Was very active, and I decided going into college I did not want to be outside for 4 years. So
Yes.
Understand that.
I refused to spend
That's,
4 years
yeah.
outside.
Hey, Angel. By
Uh-huh.
her being so fast and quick and ran track, how in the heck did you steal her?
I had to do it real quick, and believe me, I think St. Louis did send me some hate mail in the mail, so I got to check the mailbox again. I had to tell the postman, listen, not here, not it's up the street, just go up that way. It's not over here. But Jay Casey said that's what's up, McBride. Now there will be with this next comment. Just everybody get ready for this one. There will be an autograph session by Coach Johnson after this comment here because your dad says she was a female Westbrook. So the autograph session will start
Whoa.
right after the show.
No, that is my
Wow.
cousin. So a lot of family in the chat looks like tonight.
Well, a lot of it.
Yep,
Yeah,
another
listen,
family
yeah.
session.
my apologies. And then the real Mr. Johnson here also. It says Coach Johnson is the truth. Love the show. Appreciate it, and appreciate you, Dallas, for coming back as well. You know, speaking of, we may have to have a Mr. Johnson on. Just saying, because I'm quite well because you guys are also entrepreneurs as well. So you have your own business, so it'd be nice to have them on here so you guys can talk about your business as well.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
All right. We'll make sure we'll schedule that. We have a loaded schedule, but we'll make sure we'll bring them on there. And San says, yes, indeed, McBride. And again, loving the comments. And again, you guys can see the chat comments up there on the screen as we do appreciate everyone coming in. So the WNBA continues. And by the way, we're about 29 days from the NBA. But
Yes.
Yes.
this is where the fun part comes in because this segment not only is it brought to you by Hat Tricks in Tampa. If you guys are looking to watch some preseason games, please visit Hat Tricks down there in Tampa where they have all the games live on TV. They also sell the Bolts pretzel from Penguin Pretzels. So I do appreciate you guys. If you live in the Tampa area, a lot of people here don't in the room, but I do appreciate it. But if you do come down to Tampa, make sure you stop by Hat Tricks. But the WNBA, lots going on. I think I will say as this segment being called the Coach and Coach Unscripted segment. MVP, and I guess I'm going to start with I don't know because I think this is equal here. So
You
Coach,
gotta start with Coach Mac.
here with you.
Look, he gonna throw it at Coach Max court.
Look, y'all know I feel some type of way about this MVP. Now, Breonna Stewart, I've been a fan of her. I'm a UConn fan, and I've definitely liked her and loved her as a player. However, Asia Wilson, my girl, I mean, only thing she has not done was dunk. The girl has done literally everything else, and she still did not get MVP. Like, make that make sense. So I don't understand how you have someone who's literally outperformed in pretty much every category, and yet still fall short and become the third selection as the MVP candidate. So I feel some type of way about that. I don't agree with the decision. Clearly. Yes, mom, I agree with you. Highway robbery on that one because that one was completely highway robbery. But I believe that Asia definitely showed her passion, I'll call it that, in the game last night. when they played against the Wings.
Mhm.
Coach Johnson.
You know, like Coach Mack said, I'm in complete agreement with her on that. I was a little bit blown away that the fact that she wasn't second either. You know,
Yes.
that was shocking, but I definitely can see her taking that as motivation to finish out the rest of this playoff series into the finals with a chip on her shoulder. I mean, you just, you know, it's like Coach Mack made a comment earlier in what is it being based off of?
Yes.
What is the
Mhm.
decision being based on? Because if we're looking at stats and we're looking at performance and we're looking at impact that you have on your team, and how you have helped your team win and remain, set records throughout the season. I mean,
Mm.
the Aces have set a WNBA record followed by the one they set last year for most win loss for their win
Mhm.
loss record. So I just find it very
Mhm.
interesting that she did not win MVP, but I no doubt if see them getting to the finals and her being finals MVP.
Right, Vaughn.
I
You know what?
agree.
And
I
when
agree.
we talked about this briefly before we went on air here, and she handled herself well because
Mm.
I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure inside there was a lot of like inner rage going on. Like, are you kidding me? How in the world do you not hand this to me? And you almost, and again, based on my own opinion here, you wonder if it's one of those things they just say, well, this one sold more jerseys. No, she didn't. This one is more popular. No, she isn't. So then what do you base it upon? Because again, it's if you really look at it, she should have gotten it, but there's going to be that constant argument. So I want to see, and this is where I wish I had a secret agent where I can just reach out to her, directly and have her come on during the off season. I'll see what I can do, maybe pull some strings and see if we can have her on during the off season. But because that would be one great conversation once the calendar year's over. Therefore, she can't get into any kind of trouble or anything else. Calendar year over, say what you want to say. No one else will hear it because I don't know, might be 500,000 people out here, but I'm just saying they may not hear it. I don't know. Either way, but Barry does says agreed. She was on a mission. We all waiting to see New York versus the
Ooh.
Las Vegas Aces. Now, one game in
Mhm.
particular with the New York Liberty and the Connecticut Sun, which if I do remember correctly, I did say they may win one, and they actually won one. So the series is tied, 1-1.
Mhm.
So on in that series, I'm assuming we're maybe in some agreement, Coach Mack, that the Liberty takes that one and just awaits for the Aces to finish off their game.
So yeah, and how I've always felt about the Liberty, they are very iffy, as Coach Johnson and I have talked about, mainly because the Liberty, one thing I've noticed about them is their chemistry. The way they don't really flow on the team is if you were to watch like the
Mhm.
Aces, they really feed off each other really well. But when you watch the Liberty, the spacing is almost horrible. Like they're on top of each other, they're running to each other. The lack of communication is definitely playing a factor on defense. For one, game one when they played against Connecticut, that most definitely showed on the floor. And so I just feel like the Liberty, they show up sometimes and sometimes they don't. So like last night when well, excuse me, not last night, whatever night that was, I can't even think of what today is, but whatever night the other game was,
It was Friday night.
Connecticut, Friday night. Thank you, Ron. They were very physical with the Liberty. And the interesting thing that I noticed, and obviously we have our chat group, that it was pretty easy for Alyssa to get Brianna out of her game. And only thing she was just basically doing was just being
Mhm.
physical with her. And so if you have
Mhm.
something like that that's preventing you from being that productive player, how long are you really going to last in this series? And how long will this team last if you're supposed to be like their star player?
See? And
I agree with you, Coach. I agree with you. The way they played, the way they was running up on each other, no, no spacing, and
Hmm.
they just looked like they were. I don't know if they tired or what, but they just didn't look like they were playing as one unit. They just look like they're just running around like a pinball all over the place.
Hmm.
And I will say that we do have to give a round of applause to the Sun coming in as the underdogs and
Right.
putting up a great fight. And, as
Yes.
I said before, I felt like the Sun, they weren't just going to roll over. And that is one thing. I mean, they have a vet, DeWanna Bonner, who again is still, she didn't have a great shooting night and still had 20 points and 7 rebounds.
Mm.
And so it's like with
Mhm.
her not having a good field goal night, and still being able to produce says a lot about her impact on her team and her impact on the game. Now, the only concern with the Suns is the fact that DeWanna Bonner and Alyssa Thomas both having to play 40 minutes
Mm.
game.
Mm.
Concern now becomes, out of a series best of 5, how
Mm-hmm.
long before they run out of gas? And Rebecca Allen was a huge X factor for them. She had usually averages 6 points, had 18 points, and she was 4 of 5 or 3 of
Mm-hmm.
4 from the 3-point line. So
Mm-hmm.
she definitely stepped up big for her team. But can they maintain that level of consistency against a team like the Liberty, who has offensive threats all across the board?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what's interesting, as you mentioned about about Bonner, is the way New York really didn't guard her. Now I understand that coaches have their philosophy on how to guard a screen. Some tell you to go over, some tell you to go under. But the thing with Dewan is that you can't lose sight of her. You cannot give her that space because she will light it up. I don't care how far outside the perimeter she is, she gonna light it up. And that's one of the things that the Liberty did not make an adjustment on, even in game 2, is that they still allow her to just shoot coming off the screen instead of just really trying to
Mhm.
guard it. So it's like, okay, Liberty, what type of adjustments are you really gonna make to really be successful not only in this series but when you play against the aces? Because you got to think about Chelsea Gray. I mean, she will kill you off of a screen and roll. That's basically what they do. And as you see, what's the name for Dallas? My brain just went blank. She got the most improved player. Braids. She had braids last night. I can't think of the name.
I
Name
was gonna
starts
say
with the S.
Odyssey. What's not?
No, her name
Last
starts
name
with the S.
Blaney.
No, it'll come to me in a minute. But she was guarding Chelsea. And the thing about oh my gosh, I can see her face. I just can't think of a name. I can tell you the initials. It's SS. Oh my gosh. She has a foreign name basically.
Oh
But
yeah,
anywho,
talk about, yep.
yeah. So the way she was guarding Chelsea was literally like straight up instead of like really getting down in a defensive stance and really coming off the screen as she would. But Chelsea literally lit her up every time. Either she was going to kill her off the drive or she was going to come off top of the screen and score. So just the whole screen and roll thing just really just had me baffled for
Mhm.
both games. And I'm like, fundamentals again,
Yeah,
even on that level.
Mhm.
even on that level.
So we got a couple of comments here. This time it actually is dad, but cousin he made a comment too. But he said, "I'm 6'5". I've always told T if she could shoot over me, she'll score on any female player."
True.
Follows up with another
Clear,
great
true or
quote. Keep up
false?
the good work. Okay, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
True or false?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Barry
Yeah.
says, "Keep it 100. We appreciate it." And again, thanks you guys for the comments because again, it's a lot of work, but we appreciate it. We have fun here. And by the way, as Coach had mentioned, as far as the text thread, that even more fun because
Hmm.
everybody is just spitting things out quick back and forth, and all of us, some of us may be in the senior ball, some of us, but
I don't
it's
have an
crazy.
iPhone, so y'all guys are fast with that iPhone. Man. I was like, man, these guys are killing me over here. I'm just a slow Android guy with a Samsung phone, but that Apple phone, man, that thing is fast. Y'all be spitting those texts out. I was like, wow.
It was it true. Well, that's my mom gets me on that one though because so obviously hers is set up for Spanish and she's quick draw McGraw when it comes to a lot of stuff. Like, "Ma, hold on for a second. I'm going back to her first text. She said, "Oh, just keep up." And then if I can't keep up, she call me up. I'm like, "Oh, let me tell you exactly how my day went." "Okay, Ma. All right, give me a second, Ma. Let me sit down." So yeah, love my mom, but yeah, thank God though at 73 years old, I'll give it to her because she did learn. When she got rid of her flip phone and she went to that smartphone,
Oh, now.
go to
She
the
got rid
store
of
with
that
her
flip
now.
phone.
Yeah. If you go to the store with her, she'll tell you, say, "Who you calling?" No, let me show you how to work this phone here. So, God bless.
Funny.
Emily
Boy,
says,
that
"I
is
really
funny.
enjoyed the commentary. We appreciate you, Emily, for tuning in, along with everyone else
Thanks,
here
E.
on the show." But and this is why a lot of times I talk about how much fun we have on the show here, because we get to hear the ladies again here on the Coaching Coach Unscripted segment, because the Aces, of course, are waiting until October 1st to finish off their series against Dallas. Dallas again making their first trip, at least to the conference finals, which is good to see as well. But Coach Mack, I'll start with you. I guess first of all, for Dallas making it as far as they have, which obviously gives them a goal for next year to try and make it back there, and obviously then make it to the finals. Obviously, I think the Aces are too much for them, but do they finish it off on Sunday?
Ooh, that's a good question because Dallas has really been performing pretty well, I must say. I still think that the Aces is going to take it, mainly because you're looking at speed versus size in this. And, when you have players like Asia Wilson who can really run the floor, the great thing about the Aces is that they spread you out, and they, especially in transition, they spread you out. And then, hey, they cut, they're passing, they're feeding off each other. So they have like that really good chemistry. And when you watch the Wings, it's kind of like, okay, do you guys really have a plan on how you want to guard the Aces? And the way that it's looking is like, we really don't have an answer. Um, so, because again, you have players like Chelsea. She can beat you off the drill, but she can also shoot. Or at least five other players are in double figures. So when it comes to the Wings, you have maybe two, three or so. Yeah, maybe two or three that actually score in double figures. So they're still outnumbered in so many categories. I hope they, win another game, mainly because I do want to continue on seeing this series. I think it's a really, really good series, especially watching Dallas progress compared to how they have been in the previous years.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just don't think they're gonna beat the Aces still.
I don't either.
Yeah, I have to agree with Coach Mack on that. They're not playing horrible basketball at all. I don't think that they're getting beat because they're not playing well. I mean, just in I think it was either game one or game two, the Aces had more turnovers, and
Mhm.
that's usually a big stat to look at when you look at close games of is who had more possessions, right? And so
Mhm.
the fact that the Aces had more turnovers and still won by a 7 or 8 point difference, it just says a
Mhm.
lot about how well the Aces are playing right now. And
Mhm.
again, similar to the Liberty, they have threats all across the board that can score inside, outside, pull ups, off of on balls. I mean, there's just various ways that they all can score and create offense for themselves. And so
Mhm.
I think it's going to be very tough for Dallas to pull off a game. And again, not because they're playing bad basketball, but simply Asia is unstoppable right now. And,
Mhm.
Period.
and until they can
Mhm.
figure out a plan to stop Asia, I mean, I don't see how that's going to happen. I mean, she is on fire. And like I said, I think this MVP situation has just further put a chip on her shoulder to go even harder and
Mhm.
finish out this series into the finals.
She's got motivation.
Sure does. San said,
Yes.
well said, Coach Mack. And Norchella says, great show, team. Signing off to finish my workout. I'll be back next week. Blessings all. Thank you. We do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, listen, that remember she said earlier she's going to start working out for the NIL. So we'll remember that one. And as we got about 10 minutes here left onto the show here, big blockbuster trade today.
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
Damian Lillard is heading to the
Yes.
Bucks on a 3-team trade, and someone in Miami is a little bit salty. Where
I
he
think
said there should be an investigation.
I think Coach Johnson said somebody's cutting up in Miami.
Yeah, Jimmy Buckets is a little bit salty about this trade.
Uh-huh.
He don't believe it. He don't want to start nothing, but I'm just saying. I
He's
think y'all might
starting
need to look
something.
into that.
He's starting something.
Oh yes, indeed. I
Well,
think
the
giving
thing
up Drew Holiday though, I
Hmm.
just
Ooh,
don't know. Giving up Drew Holiday, I just don't know how I feel about that one though. I mean, to
really?
me, Drew Holiday is very underrated, and I think
Yep.
he had a
True.
great season. His last two seasons have been outstanding, and he's a 6'4" point guard. I mean, he's
Hmm.
aggressive on both ends of the court, and I think that he was a good fit for their team and their style of play. So it'll be interesting to see how Dame can adjust to the team and being able to play, and have that cohesiveness that they'll need.
One of the things that was mentioned about that trade for the most part was who was like the better finisher and who would you want to have the ball in their hand when it comes to crunch time? And so that's when it came to like Dame. I think I would rather have Dame in that situation. For one, he's been in that situation. So
Right.
he understands the pressure. He knows how to handle the pressure. And could you say the same thing about Drew Holiday? So those were some key factors that they did point out that I thought were some pretty good spot on points when it came to comparing the two.
And
So
that's correct.
it
That's
it
correct.
almost comes down to the question I think that we brought up maybe even last week where we were talking about, do you chase the money or do you chase the rings? And at this point, Milwaukee, we know they've already won one and
Right.
they're looking to win yet another one. So it obviously, I don't think it came down to money when it comes down to Dane. But so I'm just wondering, is there enough key pieces in Milwaukee right now for them to chase and pursue another ring?
I think it is. I think that
Yeah.
they added one of the major parts that they needed was
Mm.
a consistent score, a guy that has a lot of experience, a guy that when it comes down to crunch time, that they know that they can't get it to Giannis, that they can get it to Dame out there, and he can go ahead and do his thing. Not saying that Militant, can't do his thing, but he's kind of been up and down. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that they on their way. They're on their way.
I'm excited to see how this will play out between them. I think it's a good combo. Now that Giannis basically have help, because it always seems like it's just him, and I feel so bad for him. But it's like, man, he really
Yeah.
can take it all, and so now he can relieve some of that pressure and have that help that he needs, and be able to, reserve his body because he goes hard. He is
Right.
one player that definitely goes hard every game.
Well, he has Lopez that helps him out, when he needs to take a break, and he has Bobby
True.
Portis that comes in and does his little thing. But Bobby's not consistent. He's up and down. He gets all
Hmm.
excited, and he's not that type of guy that is calm and focused all the time when he comes in the game. But sometimes when he comes in the game, he does well. It just depends on how Bobby's going to be. Uh, when he plays in that game. It's just been up and down. But Giannis can count on Damian to be there because he's focused. He wants to win one, and I think that he's motivated.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see the NBA season again. It's right around the corner, especially in Philly. There's some drama. So I want to see what's going to
Uh,
happen there because this season's not going to start off well for the Sixers. Sixers fans, hold on, grab your many tubs of popcorn because it
He
just,
say many times.
I just the current MVP worked his butt off to become MVP. You did not play MVP during the playoffs, that I'm still very much upset about because that was absolute garbage what you showed during the playoffs. So until you
yeah.
show me you want to win in Philly, and I know Jimmy Buckets is dying to have him down in Miami, I want to see. You kept telling us to trust the process. All right, put up or shut up here. Because at this point, a lot of Philly fans are upset with what you didn't do during the playoffs. And with that being said, we will end the show here tonight. And I thank everyone for tuning in. Once again, I thank our sponsors here, Tampa Joe's longest tenured sponsor. If you guys are coming down, you want to eat some great food. And if you're an Eagles fan, hopefully some people are in this room, but if you're an Eagles fan, You can watch the NFL games at Tampa Joe's at 9316 Anderson Road in Tampa, Florida. It is a hop, skip, and a jump over from the airport. You guys can stop there, and they're usually open until midnight, most times till 2 o'clock. Okay, one thing in Florida, unlike any other place, the weather plays a factor. And if there's not many people at 11:35, the manager says, "Oh, well, look at the time. We're closed." So the thing here in Florida, don't ask me why, but it's just a thing. But when they are open, of course, and they're always open all the time, they're open 7 days a week. Stop by. It opens at 11 o'clock in the morning. Great food, great specials. So swing by there. Also, once again, a hat tricks. If you guys are Tampa Bay Lightning fans, you guys want to check out the preseason games, stop by Hat Tricks. You guys will have a great time over there. It's a nice little restaurant. They have tons of TVs, so you don't have to just watch preseason hockey. They have the games on as well, NFL games, MLB games, obviously the Rays being in the playoffs as well. So great time to be a Rays fan. Myself, I'm a Phillies fan. Red October, ended up clinching it last night, so that's a great thing. And also, oh, wait, Tampa Bay, let me remind you what we did to you on Monday night, all right? Because you guys got to talk smack for 2 years in a row, but we took care of business on Monday night, and the takeover was hostile. 800 plus fans at Ray J. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves because we came in, not only took it to the house, but ended up purchasing the house in the process. So, for a second. But again, for everyone, next week, the call in live will be live. So you guys have questions, you have comments, you want to speak to one of our distinguished panel members here, you guys can call into the show. And when the show is off air, you'll be able to leave a voicemail. So if you do have a question that you do remember, you'll be able to leave a voicemail for anyone on the show. Therefore, we'll play back here live on the show. You guys can hear what's going on. Obviously, the new chat feature as well, so you guys can see your own comments up on the screen. So still more to come with Talking Hoops. And as the TBL BSL season comes around, we'll be talking about that as well, because we got to make sure we give love to the basketball league. Because again, I will say it, St. Louis, I stole one. And I'm glad I stole one.
Love it.
I'm just putting it out there. But with that being said, thank you to my producer over in Studio B, to Debbie, for Coach Mac, Coach Johnson, Ron Briscoe, and myself. We thank you all for tuning in here tonight on BroadSTStuff.com, over on Amp Radio, Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. And with that being said, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And the panel, any last words?
Hey, enjoyed it. Had a good time. Mark was outstanding with NIL, and I'm looking forward to the next show. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Enjoy your night.
That I like to hear. And that's basketball words.